Oh, am I switched on? Yes.
Good morning. It's Friday. It's the 10th. It's 10 o'clock, which means it must be block of the month. Yay! Which I completely forgot to tell anyone about on Tuesday. Go me. Well done. I don't know what day of the week, month or year it is, but it does mean that Jane Alcock is here. You have to excuse the noises off. I'm busily printing off the instructions to show you. We have got a fun-packed, very, very busy day for you today. As you can see, this is the quilt. This is what you are finishing off today. Jane's going to take you through all the binding and everything else, and then we're going to have a look at this. This is the quilt we teased you with last month, which is Jane's very own beautiful, beautiful quilt. That's what I'm just printing off now, the instructions. Let me grab it for you. Yes. With a lifestyle photo shoot. Beautiful. Full instructions here, absolutely full. I mean, step by step, photographed, really seriously clear. This is mega. This is, yeah, there's page after page after page in that. And that is on the website if you want just the pattern alone, or if you want the full quilt, which is Tilda fabric, beautiful Tilda fabric, and the full instructions, then that is on the website for you. We also have a Jo Morton, her new Shelbyville collection. We have a Jo Morton version of this quilt. So if pastels aren't your thing and more earthy tones, then we've got a Jo Morton version which we will be showing you later on in the show. Also we have got, because you've asked us, we have put together, I say we, Josh has worked so incredibly hard on this, but lots of you have been saying, what if we missed X, Y and Z of block of the month? So what we've done is we've made a complete compendium which has got all of the blocks from start to finish. It's whopping. This is a mock-up of what it will be like. It will be in a booklet. And we were just this morning printing off going, well, hang on, how does this look? Because it is slightly different. So you will get, each block has pages like this showing you step by step. So it's different to the instructions well, it's the same instructions as to how to do it, but formatted slightly differently. Without the photos, you've got diagrams instead. So Josh has put all that together. We're just now putting it into a booklet format. But look at it. I mean, it's mega. It's absolutely mega. He's worked so hard on it. We're so proud of him. Look at this. I mean, it's like a proper book. It's a proper book. It's so clever. So we've got that on the show. So for those of you that have joined us partway through, maybe you've got some missing, then this is your way to join us now. And actually, bearing in mind the instructions themselves sell for like $5.99, that is incredible value for all of those instructions. And if you're missing like 1 to 5, or you joined us at a later date, then that brings you up to speed completely. The next thing that we will work on is if anybody wants to have the full quilt kit, if you've missed completely, then we are just working out the fabric requirements for that to put some together for those of you that have missed anything along the way, so that everybody has everything that they need, and then we can put that to bed and move on to the next one. Should we have a sneak peek at the next one, Jane?
We'd like to have a sneak peek.
Yeah, Jane is socially distancing over here. It's a metre now. We're down to a metre, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the image of what we're aiming towards.
So this will be Jane's incredible Storm at Sea quilt. Is that not just, I mean, just look in the corners. Is it Storm at Sea? Is that
Sea Storm,
Sea Storm.
because the Storm at Sea is a different pattern, really.
This is your Sea Storm. And that looks very pretty, doesn't it, when it's done on a computer? But just you wait until you see this is the start of it. Which blocks are those? Blocks
1 to 3.
Blocks 1 to 3. That is what is coming next. You are so clever. The colours are just divine. I'm going to join in with this one. Decided. Going to do it. I'll have my monthly homework to do. just beautiful.
Like you haven't got enough to do.
I have not got enough to do. No, I have not. So good morning to everyone. Let's have a very quick roll call. Let me turn down the volume because I've been listening to Josh. We have got, who have we got? We've got Karen, we've got Helen, we've got Anne. Good morning. We've got Pam, we've got Fiona. Good morning. Good morning. We've got Jill, we've got Fiona as well. We've got Janet, we've got Claire. Hello everybody, and Jackie, hello, and Jane as well. Maggie, hello. Nearly forgot this. Me too. Loving the colour palette of the seam swarm, says Audra. Yeah, it wasn't because I wasn't excited about doing it. It's just I don't know what day of the week or month or anything. Could be anything.
I don't think any of us do we?
No idea. Like no idea at all.
We all live in a different time frame.
It's cloudy on the east coast of Scotland. Right, without further ado, because we've got so much to jam pack into the show this morning, I am going to go and sit over there in a socially distanced situation. I'm going to take this with me and try not to get so engrossed that I forget to press buttons, which is what generally happens. So if you go that way, I can go that way, and we shall dance. See you in a little bit. Bye-bye. There you go.
Lovely, thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Hi.
There's nice sunshine this morning. Doesn't that make a nice change?
Oh,
I was so fed up of all the rain.
me too.
Right.
Me too.
We're going to talk about the binding today. Now, I had a set of instructions that Josh had very cleverly put together.
Well, where did they go?
I put them down.
That has been our morning, hasn't it?
What have I done with those?
Do you want me to print you off another one?
That's really strange. Because we've got instructions flying everywhere, haven't we, at the moment?
Everything else.
No, that's the
all
instructions for the Bon Voyage one.
Did you put
Natasha,
them
I
somewhere
don't know what I've
safe?
done with them.
Are they in your bag?
Have they gone in my bag?
No, don't
Yes,
know.
they have.
Yay!
Trying to sneak off with them so that Natasha wouldn't notice.
Yeah, it's fine.
So we've got a lovely set of instructions here, nice step-by-step instructions. But what I've also done is I've done the little formula here so that you will always be able to work out how much binding you'll need for your quilt, no matter what size it is.
Clever.
So we'll just go through that first so that we can, it's all written there, but if I tell you as well, then that always helps when you're looking back and you think, I can't remember what she said. So we'll do that little bit first. I'll show you how to attach the binding, how to do your mitered corners. I'm not going to sew all the way round, I'm just going to fudge it a little bit, and then I'll do the joining at the other end, so that we'll do a quick go through. All the instructions are there, beautiful step-by-step instructions by Josh, so it's nice and clear.
He's worked so hard on all
he
of
does,
these.
he just makes them brilliant, they're absolutely fabulous. So that's lovely there. So once you've made your quilt and you've done your quilting, however you want to quilt it, whether you're going to send it away to be long arm quilted, or whether you have a go at doing it yourself, or you do the quilt as you go like we did last month, and I showed you the technique of doing quilt as you go, you'll have your quilt made and it will have rough edges. So the first thing you're going to do when you finish doing your quilting is you're going to trim your quilt down. So all you're going to do is trim off the backing fabric and the wadding. And you might trim off some of your borders just to straighten it up. Now, what I always do with my ladies is I say, take the measurement of your outside border, whatever it was, and take 1/4 inch off. And that's how wide this end border should be. So these borders were originally cut at 2.5, so they'll be 2 1/4. So I place my ruler at 2 1/4 on this seam line here, just making sure that it's fairly level. Sometimes it isn't, and what you can do, if it's not sitting level, you can just give it a little tweak, either pull it out slightly or pull it this way slightly, just so that you're lined up along your seam line along there. And then you can cut that edge off. You can get a rotary cutter, that's it, and just tweaking it slightly. And sometimes you might trim a little bit of your border off, don't worry if you do, because things stretch and move when you're quilting, so it's quite common to have to trim maybe a little bit of your border off.
Can we allay that as a fear that people have? Like, I've wrecked my quilt, it's not right, I can't sew in a straight line, all the other things that we tell ourselves because we're half an inch off.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Unless you're going in for a competition, I say this every time, it doesn't matter. Nobody is going to critique your work. If you're giving it as a gift, they're going to be thrilled that you've spent time making something for them. If it's for yourself, you're going to forget that there was a mistake in it. So, you know, just enjoy the process. Just, you know, envelop yourself and think, yeah, it's okay, it'll do. Get it finished. A finished quilt is better than one in a bag in the back of the cupboard, not finished.
We've all got those cupboards behind then, shall we?
We've all got those. I've got bags and bags of them.
Yeah. Let me just see. I've just had Heather says, where can you find the Tilda quilt? It's just being loaded as we speak. Emma wasn't quite sure on quantities. How many did we load of the? How many did you cut of the Tilda?
I'm not sure how many we've got of the Tilda yet. I think Inga's helping me with that.
We can put that up at least, can't we? Yeah.
Definitely.
So Ems, what I've just said is fine to put up. And then we can always add more. Yeah. Honestly, I've been sitting on this Tilda fabric now for months because I knew that this was coming.
It came in.
I really want to put it.
I'm having that. Can I make a quilt with that?
I've wanted to put it in so many things and resisted because I knew it was earmarked for you.
Oh, it's just beautiful fabric. It really is.
Yeah. Linda says, loving the Bon Voyage quilt. Is there a kit or pattern available, or is the pattern available separately? There is a kit with all of the fabric. And everything is with the right amounts and everything else with the instructions, or if you want the instructions separately, they are also available. They are all on the website and will be loaded, if not now, then within the next 10 minutes.
That's the instruction kit. Again, beautiful.
Now,
Step by
Claire
step
says,
by Josh, done beautifully.
Have you ever tried overlocking the edge of your quilt? She's done it and it makes she makes the binding of it so much more easy.
Yes. I recently had one done at the Long Arm Quilters and Amanda beautifully overlocked the edge for me and I was like, oh, this is a game changer. It makes it binding so much easier.
Yeah.
I don't have an overlocker and I'm not going to spend the time doing it, cutting it and then going over it with a zigzag stitch. That's just, you know, an extra step that you don't really need to do. But if you've got an overlocker, then yeah, go for it.
It's what I do. I have to say, I didn't know if it was right or wrong, so I didn't tell anyone I did it, but I've always done it.
Yeah, I think for me, I've never had it done before. I've had it back from a Long Arm Quilters and it's had a line of stitching around it, which again is helpful because it holds the 3 layers together if you've got flappy borders.
No one wants flappy borders,
You don't want flappy
Jane.
borders. I usually keep mine pinned. If I'm doing a big quilt, the pins stay in even when I'm trimming it, just so that they don't move. Like for this one, you see you've got a great big long stretch of border there. So if you trim that down and you haven't got something holding it here, it's going to move. So I keep my pins in, because I pin when I'm quilting, I keep this edge of pins in, even when I'm trimming. Sometimes I move them, because sometimes when you smooth your border out, it'll have a little ruckle in it. So I just smooth it out and move the pin, but I keep it pinned while I attach the binding.
Nice.
Because it just keeps it all together. So the formula for working out how much fabric you need for your binding. You will measure your quilt top side and the one side. You can measure all 4 sides if you want to, but I don't think you need to. I think just measure the top and the side, add those together and then times it by 2. So that gives you the whole circumference of your quilt. So once you've done that, you've got this long figure. You'll divide that then by the width of fabric. I usually use 42 as a measurement, usually because
so the width of the fabric you're making the binding from.
So if you're using extra wide, then if it's 56, and use that measurement. But generally, quilting fabric is between 42 and 44, so I go with 42. That will then give you something generally. Round it up to that figure. So for this quilt here, the block of the month, it's a square quilt. it's 60 by 60, so 240 then divided by 42 gave me something like 5 point something something something. So I said, right, 6 strips of binding fabric. I cut my binding at 2.5 inches, so then I times that figure 6 by 2.5, which gives me 13, 14, 15 inches. So that's how much fabric I need. So having a 1/2 metre of fabric is going to be enough to bind that quilt, because I won't need more than 1/2 metre. So that's, the formula is there on the making the binding instructions. So you'll be able to work it out. Whatever quilt you then go on to make, you'll be able to work out how much binding you need. I think that's sometimes something that people struggle with, because it's quite a lot of maths and we don't always like it, do we? So your stripology ruler comes in really handy when you're doing your binding, because, as I say, I use 2.5 and it's all there. Little black dots on the stripology tell me that that's 2.5 every time. So you can cut 10 strips in a go without any hassle. Does it in minutes. So I love the stripology for my binding particularly.
And the extra large are back in stock. Woo!
Brilliant. So once you've got your strips cut, you will cut the selvage off the edge of the quilt, off the edge of the strips, and you're going to join the strips together. If you have a pattern fabric, you're going to place them right sides together. Obviously with a plain fabric, you can't really tell which is the right and the wrong side. So you place your 2 strips together, right sides together. I'm in the right place here, yeah. At a right angle to each other at the ends of the strips. So you're lining up the edges here and here. You take your ruler, and I'll put the ruler somewhere. Where have I put it?
That's just this morning, isn't it?
That's there's no hope, is there? 45-degree line on your ruler. If you've got one of the smaller rulers, the 12.5, they're a little bit easier to manoeuvre. Place your 45-degree line on your ruler across the bottom of the strip. So it's lined up across the bottom there, and the corner of the ruler is lined up at the corner where those 2 strips join together. And you're then going to mark that 45-degree line from the middle, as we always do, going out to the edges. It's not showing up very well. Let's give it a bit of a... There we go. So you've got the line there. Pop a couple of pins in, just to hold it, each side. Let's move those out the way. And then we're going to sew along that marked line. I'm just going to pop that back into the middle. Yeah, we're good.
Oh yeah, no, I've thrown a new machine at you today, so sorry about that.
It's okay. We'll get there.
Jane, do you know, does the booklet include the binding instructions at the end?
Don't like the sound of that. Is that because I've still got the walking foot on?
Oh, potentially.
Well, it sounds better now. I don't think it has the binding instructions, the full... No, it's not liking it at all, Natasha. I don't know what I've done.
Hang on. I'll tell you what.
I think we're okay. It's okay. I just pulled it up a bit. That's it. It's sewn it. That's all we need to do.
I didn't check to see if I pulled that thing down properly.
It's sewn it. That's okay.
I might
So
not
we've
have.
got the line, sewn line now across that diagonal. We're now going to put our 1/4 inch mark on our ruler on that sewn line. The creative grids are great because they have a frosted 1/4 inch, so it's really easy to see. So the 1/4 inch line is lined up with the sewing edge on the far corner of this, because we're going to cut that corner off.
What?
So we cut the corner off.
Okay.
We've got a 1/4 inch seam. We then open the strips out, and this is the only time I press seams open. I know other people like to press seams open sometimes when they're doing their patchwork, but I'm a one side person. And I press them open because it reduces the bulk when we're folding over the strip. So we've got let me go on a close up on that. We've
Sure
got
can.
that effect going on.
Perfect.
Okay, I'll bring that down slightly. So that's the effect, and that joins the strips together into one long piece. And so you're going to carry on then. So the strip that was going vertically becomes your horizontal strip, right side facing up, and you put your next strip right side facing down on that, and you'll do the same thing again, and you'll join those all together in one long strip. You're not joining them into a loop, you're just joining them into a great big one long strip. So you'll have one end and then lots of joined seams to another end.
Because this doesn't need to be biased, does it? This is
we're
straight cut binding.
We're doing straight edges. We're binding straight edges. We've got no curves, so we don't need any bias because we don't need any give.
Jen, can you pass me those instructions down there, and I'll check the binding.
The Bon Voyage, or this one?
Yeah.
I don't think it does. I think it just mentions about binding in it. But we can adjust that maybe. So once you've got all your strips joined together, you're then going to, what would be the wrong side, where your seam is, you're going to fold that strip in half along the length of it, raw edges together. So it's like that, and you're going to press it all the way down, so you've got those two raw edges together, and you're going to keep going until all of your strip is pressed and neatly in half like that. So you end up with a great big roll of bias tape that's folded in half with the wrong sides together all the way down. So when you've done your binding and you've trimmed the edge of your quilt, you take one side of your quilt, start approximately in the middle, and you're going to pin the edge of your binding strip, leaving about 6 to 8 inches loose. So pop a pin in about there, and I always pop a pin in about 1/4 inch away from the corner. Now I have this pin facing up and away from the edge of the quilt because it's just a marker, and it's where I'm going to stop to then fold the mitered corner. So that's just a marker, and when I get to there I'm going to stop sewing. So it's better to have the pin sticking up and away from the edge so you can see it easily.
Right.
So right, let's just change that to 1/4 inch. Lengthen the stitch slightly. That's it. I tend to bind my quilt with the same colour thread as my binding, just because I don't want any of it showing. So you can clip it if you want to, or pin it, but I tend not to, because it's you're just making sure that you've got your 3 edges of your quilt and the 2 raw edges of your binding all lined up together. So I will start where that pin is, 1/4 inch from the edge of the quilt. Put my glasses somewhere, there they are. And I will sew down. Now when I start, I will do a few stitches, and then I will do a reverse stitch, just a couple of stitches, and then forward again, just because, and you'll see when we come to doing the joining, you're going to have to move it slightly, and you don't really want it to come undone. I've got the walking foot on here, but it's not playing.
Oh, I don't know if I've actually put that on properly because I did it quickly in a rush.
Right.
Do you want me to
Let's take it
readjust?
off. Should we take it off?
Yeah, so squeeze the two, hang on. If you step over.
Yeah, I'll come out the way and then you can just nip in and take it off because we can do it without.
Da 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 da. You know what it is, don't you? Had it underneath the foot. It had come down too far and it had clipped on under the foot.
That's fine. We'll get there.
It's on now.
Yes.
And
So
hopefully that should be on correctly.
this lovely machine has an integrated walking foot, which I just think is just wow.
It's phenomenal because otherwise...
You spend 10 minutes, don't you, trying to get your walking foot on?
Yeah, but it does help if somebody installs it correctly and not in a rush. Is that better?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yay! Hey!
Love
we
it.
have the technology.
So just sewing along the edge, making sure all the edges are lined up. Then when I get to the corner where the pin is, I can see that pin nicely because it's facing that way. I'm going to get to that pin. I'm going to stop, take the pin out, and then just by eye really, I'm just going to take that line of stitching into the corner. So it's a 45-degree angle. I'm going to cut the thread and I'm going to take it out of the machine. Oop. Took my foot off now. Done something.
It's somebody else's machine, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you need
The
it to
foot's
do?
just come off. I've lifted it and the foot's dropped off. Okay.
Okay.
I just broke Natasha's machine.
It's fine. It's fine. I'll put the foot back on. It's all good.
So that line of stitching and then a few stitches into the corner at a 45-degree angle. You see, you can do it all right. So I'm going to take...
social distance as well.
Yeah. Do you want me to move out the way? So we've got the binding strip going horizontally. I'm now going to fold that strip up away from the quilt. So as I'm looking at it, it's up and away, making sure that the edge of my quilt and the edge of the binding are still lying straight, in a straight line. And it gives me a 45-degree-ish angle there. So it's folded up and away, and then I'm going to bring that strip back down so it's lying back against the edge of the quilt, all raw edges together. But the top of this binding here is just a little bit proud of the edge of the quilt. I'm going to bring that up in a close-up when Natasha's got back to her...
Back to me button pressing.
Her controls after fixing my...
Yeah, so you've got to, if you want to bring that walking foot thing down, you've got to do it from the front. I can't get at it from the back.
Yeah.
Okay, close up.
Okay.
We're
You
good for close
probably...
up.
I don't know if we'll be able to see it. It's literally the width of the fold, just a little bit proud of that edge.
Yeah.
You don't want it level with the edge, you just want it a little bit above that edge there. Okay. So we've got the folds and all this back level with the edge of the quilt. Now under this fold here, if you run your finger, you can see the fold. Run your finger along the edge of that fold to make a crease in your binding. You can do it with your finger, you can do it with the flat edge of your unpicker. If you've got a hero marker, you can use that. It's just to get a crease line so that you can see it. Because when we go back onto the machine, we're going to start sewing from that crease line, 1/4 inch in against that crease line. We're not going to start stitching up here. We're going to start in a little bit. So 1/4 inch in and against the stitch. So line it up and we just start, and if you want to you can just make sure that you're there. If you're not, just adjust it slightly, and then you carry on 1/4 inch sewing all the way down. I'm just going to do a little bit, and then I'm going to just stop here because otherwise it'll be boring watching me sew all the way around the quilt. So what we've got here, if we go close up,
Oh, hang on.
can we do that?
Yep.
Can we see that crease line there? And that's where I've started stitching there. That's where the crease line is, and I've started there. So there's no stitching here, because if you started stitching there, you'd be sewing down your fold, which if I just tip that back, you'll see becomes the mitered edge when we come to turn it through and sew it down.
Jane, can I try something?
Yes.
So Creative Grids sent me these natty little devices.
Yeah.
Could you measure down using that from the top? See the top marks?
Yes, these marks here.
Yeah.
That would,
because that's what you would normally have to drop it down slightly. That's what you would, when you do your half square triangles, you then pop that up on the edges and that trims the edges.
yes.
So
It would
you
work. You could make sure that you were on a 45 degree if you needed to.
Yeah, that's all that, because it would give you your 1/4 of an inch
Yes.
in. So
Yes.
from that centre point where that centre line is, you could use that to, if you were in any doubt, you could just
check it or mark it, definitely.
So, because I know that lots of you have bought it, so I want you to know how to use it and other ways in which you can use it.
I mean, that's brilliant because it gives you that 1/4 of an inch as well. So this is brilliant for half square triangles, isn't it? Where you start with a square and marking your line across the middle. Fabulous. I love all these gadgets. So yeah, so basically what you've done is you've sewn up to that point there, 1/4 of an inch, sewn across, folded it, and you're starting 1/4 of an inch. So this flap that folds over to become the mitre is sewn up to that side and started again that side. So you're not sewing through that flap that folds over to become your mitered edge. You'll go round doing all of your corners until you get to the other end. And let's quickly just do that. So I'll pretend that I've gone all the way around the quilt. I'll come and do this corner. So I've gone 1/4 of an inch into the corner. I always have it facing away from me so that I know that I'm folding the binding strip up and away and then bringing it back down towards me. And then, as I say, I just use my finger just to make that crease so that I know I'm in the right place and I can see that. You could do it with a marker if you wanted to, if you felt you just needed that extra bit, but you can see it when you're doing it yourself. You can see exactly where it is. And on the side where you've started, so we've got the side here where it's loose there, you're going to come to that side and you want to leave yourself a good 12 to 18 inches gap. So you'll sew so far down until you've got that nice gap in the middle. And again, I'd recommend just doing a couple of reverse stitches just to hold that straight while you're manoeuvring it. Okay, so we've then got a loose flap here and a loose flap here. You'll place where the end that you started with, you place that flat against your quilt. So it's lying flat, not stretched, but close to the edge and nice and smooth. And then you bring the other strip across the top. Now, if you've got lots of your quilt strip left, just cut a piece off, about 4 inches. Doesn't have to be precise, it's just a strip of your binding, just cut it off. It's for a measure gauge basically. So you'll place that on that first edge. So the edge that you started, you place it over the top. You open the strip out and you place it across the top. Now I've taken another piece that's a different colour just so that we can see it. So it's a piece of fabric that's the width of your binding strip. So that's why you use a bit of your binding if you've got enough. But I keep a piece now that I've got that I just use all the time, so I don't have to keep snipping it off. You'll then bring this piece that you ended with across the top, so it's lying flat. And we're now going to cut this top piece, just the top piece. Don't cut through the two. Guess who knows how that happens.
Do you want to sit? Oh, they're over here. Because
Will these
there's
do?
many a pair. I was cutting some stuff for orders this morning.
So you're going to cut that with level with the edge of that strip that's underneath. Okay, so that can be a piece of your original binding. So you can have a piece of your original binding. I've just used a different colour piece.
Shows us nicely.
Just so it shows up nicely. Okay, so it's just the width of the binding strip. It's opened out and you're cutting it on the inside edge there. Okay, so now you're going to open these two strips up. The one on the top you're going to open up and have that underneath. So this one that you started with now comes to become your top strip, and this is why you need so much room, because you're now going to angle this like you did when you were joining your strips together.
Oh, that's so clever. It takes the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, because it either ends up baggy or tight otherwise.
Yeah, it should fit perfectly.
Well,
Sometimes you might need to go back and make an adjustment, but generally speaking, it works every time. So just pin the two strips together along the top and along the bottom. And again, like I said, you've got all this quilt and it's going to get in the way. So just, try and tuck it out of the way and make sure that this bit here is lying nice and flat. You can do it on your cutting mat up here. It doesn't have to be on top of your quilt. Just whatever's comfortable for you. And then we're going to go with that 45-degree line again. So we've opened this out. We've got them going in the same direction, so right sides together. We've got the 45-degree line on our ruler, which we're going to line up with the base of the strip underneath, and we're going to mark that 45-degree line. Now sometimes, isn't going to show, come on.
Oh yeah, so I might have used quite a lot of that white.
It's a nice one to use because it shows up beautifully on dark fabrics. So that line there. Now, what I've been known to do in the past is because I'm a lazy person, I'll just fold it. So I take that top strip and I fold it just so that I got a crease line. So it's a crease line that I sew on. So if you don't want to be fiddling around marking it, you can use the crease line.
I don't think anyone's ever called you lazy, Jane. It's just not something that quite goes with you.
Bless. Right, so we've got that 45-degree line. We're going to take our needle back to the middle and we're going to sew on that creased line, marked line, 45-degree line. Again, you've got all this quilt, so just move it out of the way and try and make sure that you've got it all lying flat when you start to sew. That's it. And we're going to sew along that line, just like we did when we joined the strips together.
Can you show, please?
Yeah. You got that?
Yeah.
You see it?
So you've sewn on that line like when we sewed all the strips together. So when you were
so it's
sewing, because
exactly-
I wasn't sure if you were sewing that onto the quilt or if you were just sewing that little bit.
No,
Thank
it's
you.
just
Right,
those
yeah.
2 strips together. They're out of the quilt's out of the way at this point still. Okay, so we're going to cut that, trim that off, 1/4 of an
With
inch
that
off.
1/4 of an inch.
Again, we can use this little gadget because that's handy and it's easier to get to. Just making sure that everything is flat underneath and everything is out of the way. You can do it with your scissors because, you know, this doesn't have to be an accurate 1/4 of an inch. You can do it by eye if it makes life easier for you. There we go. And we're going to press that seam open. There we go. So press the seam open, take it back, lay it flat, and it should lie flat on your quilt top.
That's perfect.
And you will sew it down 1/4 of an inch. That's a little bit loose, so we might go back and we might just take that seam in slightly and it'll lie flat. Just sometimes it's worth, before you actually sew it, with it pinned, put the pins in on the crease line and just double check it, because sometimes you might have to adjust it slightly because you don't want to have a ruck in your binding there. So that's it attached to the front. Let's just get that little bit done. So when you start, you'll start a little bit away, stitching over where you finished. Oops. And it helps if you remember to put it back to 1/4 of an inch.
Always do it. And then so the first stitch is right in the middle and then the next stitch
is
goes
in the right
across
place
to where I want it to be.
Oh yeah, it's come and threaded. Okay. It's come unthreaded. Do I have to rethread it?
Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, and I'll just talk about sewing it down. So once you've got it all sewn down, you'll sew down that gap there. You bring your fabric over. As I say, it will form a mitre in the corners. You can press that down if you want to, but if you want to have more of a rounded edge, then don't press it down, because it can give it quite a crisp finish. It's a personal taste thing at the end of the day, so you can do whatever you wish. But then this line of binding here with the folded edge comes over the back and it covers the line of stitching that you made when you sewed it to the front. So you just bring it round to the back. Now when you come to the corners, it should just fold in and make a mitre. Now what I say to people is fold it the other way to the way that it's folded on the front. If we go close up on this, Natasha.
Yeah.
You can see here it goes under that way and over the top there. So left hand side under, right hand side over. So on the back we want to do the left hand side as we're looking at it under and the right hand side over. And that just makes it lie flatter. If you do it the same way, you're going to get, and we call it, my quilt teacher used to say, you'll get nostrils. And if you look at it, it looks a little bit like a dog's nose. I don't know if we can see that. We get a close-up. I don't know. I don't think it shows up on the camera. But it makes it bulky anyway. And they look like nostrils on a dog's nose on this side. So you want it facing the opposite direction. And you're going to sew that down with a slip stitch. I don't sew the fold down, but if you want to, then do.
Yeah, I've seen that done actually quite a lot recently, and I never have, and I thought, oh, have I been doing that wrong?
No, I never sew it down.
No, because I always figure it's held.
It's held
not going
underneath.
anywhere.
It's not going to go anywhere.
But if you want to be uber sure,
you do it.
can.
It's your quilt. You can do what you like, and then that's your quilt finished. So you'll sew that down. If you don't like sewing it down by hand and you want to do it by machine, then what I suggest you do is you sew your binding on the reverse exactly the same way, and I'll just do a little bit on this side. So sew it on the reverse of your fabric in the same fashion that we've done, doing the corners exactly the same. And I'll just do this side here, and I'll show you what I do when I do machining.
Claire says you're nesting the corner. Clever.
Yes, that's right. It reduces the bulk and gives you a crisper corner.
And leave the dog's nose on the dog.
Yeah. So you would sew, if you want to do this by machine, if you want to attach it by machine, you'll sew down on the reverse, on the back of your quilt, in the same fashion that I've just done. Now this time I do recommend that you press it. So push your binding up and just give it a press. And then you're going to take it through to the front, and it will cover the line of stitching, and you will pin or use these lovely clips to hold it down. And you will position your needle so that it just catches the edge of the fold. It'll be a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch.
Could you show that before you pop it under there, just so that we can see exactly what you've done?
So it comes over. We're going to do a line of stitching close to the edge, and again I would do it in the same colour thread as the binding.
Yeah. Obviously we're not.
It's going to be more than 1/4 of an inch, so I would put my needle back to the middle, and I would just gauge this by eye. Yeah, so about there, just so that it holds it down, and you're making sure that you've covered that line of stitching that you've done from the back, and you will just sew it down. You might want to do a decorative stitch. If you've got fancy embroidery stitches on your machine, you could use one of those. You could do a blanket stitch. I like a straight stitch. It's personal preference, and you can do what you like because it's your quilt. So you get a line of stitching along the edge of the quilt there, and when you turn it over, it's just either very close to the folded edge there, or it's just on the quilt. You don't really want to have it stitching this bit here. You want it to hide itself away. So I would use the bobbin thread. I would use the same colour as my backing fabric to hide it, but on the top I would have the same colour thread as the binding. Yeah?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So that's if you don't want to do hand stitching. I know some ladies can't do a lot of hand stitching because their hands aren't as agile as they used to be. So that helps, you know, if you've got problems with your dexterity.
Right, we have a question. If a customer wanted to buy one single quilting thread to make the whole block of the month, what colour would you suggest?
I go with a cream colour, sandy colour generally,
Yeah,
or a light pale grey.
Grey, yeah. And I think I've been asked that by the same customer before, and that's exactly what I've said.
Yeah.
Go for something neutral, go for something that isn't stark.
Yeah.
Your light greys, like you say,
Yeah.
your sandy
creamy colours,
sandy
yeah.
creams. They just disappear.
They go with everything. And the thing is, with when you're doing your patchwork, because you're folding it over, you're pressing it over the seam line, it very rarely shows through on the front anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So that's your binding for your quilt. Whatever quilt you make, you can do it that way. So that's that bit done. Right.
Lots of lovely messages this morning. Thank you ever so much. Anne says it's the best demo on binding she's ever seen.
Oh, thank you very much.
Good camera work as well.
Yes.
Well, you know.
It's all down to the camera work.
I
all
just
down
press
to that.
buttons. And Jean says, thank you. Both love the way Jane has shown how to stitch binding wrong side first, then stitch down the front. We'll be trying that technique. That is the only technique that I really use just for timing. I would love to at some point, and it'll probably be when I retire at 90.
There's nothing nicer than doing it by hand, sitting with it on your knee, doing the binding. But I know for some people there's a time issue because we all make lastminute.com quilts.
Yeah.
And some of us can't sew like by hand anymore. Our fingers just won't let us do it. So it's nice to know there is another way of doing it and getting your binding on. Right, we're ready for the Bon Voyage quilt.
Always ready for the Bon Voyage.
Bon Voyage. So we've got the Tilda fabrics, which is the one hanging behind us is done in.
And actually, I haven't taken a photo of all of the fabrics that you get yet. So would you like to stop stroking it, Jane? Share with the group.
Share. No, it's all mine. I'm keeping it all. You will get a long quarter of 8 fabrics in reds and blues. So you've got 8 long quarters there.
I love a long quarter.
The hair tile in red and blue. I love the hair tile.
Or should we have a little close-up?
It's got this lovely pattern. This is the one I've used for the middle, and I've fussy cutted it, and I'm going to show you a bit about fussy cutting.
And there's enough in there to fussy cut the middles, isn't there?
And you'll have a little bit left over for your stash. And in some of these you will have, a fair amount left over, even though they are long quarters. And you've got these beautiful, you've got the paper flower in red and blue. It's just really pretty. And then you've got the Lilith in teal and red, just to give a little bit of difference in colour. And then you've got the Elsie in blue and red. They're really pretty. So those are your long quarters. You'll then have a little bit of, what are these ones called?
Salt batik.
Salt batiks in the red. It's got the label on still.
Red, 75 centimetres of that, 3/4 of a metre.
This is for your narrow border and your binding.
Oh, hang on.
Sorry, that's for your narrow border and your binding.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You've then got the bird vine sand, which is so pretty.
I love that.
It's gorgeous. Look, little tiny birds there.
Part of me
so
wants
pretty
to put it in every kit, and part of me just wants to
keep
save
it for
all for me.
It's classic Tilda, isn't it?
Beautiful.
That beautiful teal and the pink, and then a little bit of mustard in there, and that grey. It's lovely. And then you've got your background fabric, which is cream. That's quite exciting, isn't it? A nice bit of cream in there. And then you've got your border fabric. And I can't remember what that's called because I've lost my piece of paper.
I don't know, but it's gorgeous.
Again, it's lovely.
It's just like Scottish thistles, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's different colourways of this, isn't there? There's one with a blue background and the one with a red background, I think. But we've used the paler one for our kit. So that's your kit. I think there's a total of 5 metres of fabric in the kit, isn't there? I think that's what we said.
Karen, yeah, it is 5 metres.
Yeah.
And Karen says, I think I might have been the customer, but what she actually meant was what colour for quilting the quilt, not doing the piecing.
Oh, right, the quilting.
Yeah. In that case, you weren't the customer, Karen. That was somebody else that I was thinking of who wanted to know what colour to sew all of the pieces together.
Yeah, if you can only have one colour of thread, I would go with a neutral creamy colour. Go with your background colour. So on mine, most of my quilting is done with a cream thread on these bits, mostly in the seam. I've done a bit of green on the top of that one, but the majority of it is done with a cream thread in the ditch or just slightly outside of the ditch on all round all the blocks. So do that. And even if you did your cream and you kept really in the ditch, even on the colours it would hardly show, so you'd be all right. But yeah, I would go with the colour of your background of your quilt if you were going to, if you could only use one colour. Right, the other colourway we've got.
Oh, I'm excited to show. And again, this is a fabric that came in I've had it for a couple of months now, and I haven't dared touch it because I didn't know which ones you wanted. So I gave you first dibs.
I know. It's very exciting.
And this is the brand new Jo Morton from Moda, Shelbyville.
Shelbyville.
But what a different look.
It gives you that warm, autumnal, cosy.
It is,
feel.
isn't it?
Yeah.
And some of us
Traditional.
have homes with that colourway.
Yeah.
It is traditional. So we've got your pastels if you love your Tilda colourways, then go Tilda if you love your traditional. Now, you see, I'm going to be interested to know Ems, who does all of our accounts, which colourway she will choose, because normally she's your traditional colour.
We've got two. The observant among you will notice it's the same block, but it's done in different colourways.
Yes.
So the Tilda one is the blue middle with the red petal on that one, and the red middle with the red petal, blue petal on that one.
So what does that look like? Can we pop the Jo Morton over the top?
Yeah.
Even if we have to pin it.
It'll probably stick like a design wall.
Oh, perfect.
Oops, other way. No, let's pin it. Let's pin it. Don't try to be clever.
I do have a design wall, but we've run out of camera width. Oh, Em says Shelbyville every time.
Yes.
You see, this is why Ems and I are friends, because we don't have to share. Because I would go Tilda, she'd go Shelbyville.
Yeah.
And it's fine. We don't have to share.
That's good to have a friend that doesn't like the same colourways as you.
We also work really well when it comes to sharing packets of Revels, because she likes all the ones that I don't. It's the perfect friendship.
They're the best
That's why we've been
friends.
best mates for over 20 years.
So you can see we've changed the colourway. Now on your pattern,
that's gorgeous, Jane.
On your pattern, the colourways are done for the Tilda. But in your kits, what I've done is I've placed a label, a sticky label, on each of the fabrics so it corresponds with the letter. So you'll know where I was coming from with your fabrics, and you won't cut the wrong fabric thinking it's that one.
Oh, have you done that on every single kit? Oh, bless you.
Just because I know myself, I've bought kits and I've thought, oh, it's not the same colourway. Which one do they think I need to use for this one? I mean, obviously you can refer back to this on YouTube and see what I was doing, but it'll help you. But what I will say, when you get your kit, unstick those sticky labels and put them on the reverse of the fabric, because I stuck them on the front, but stick them on the back, because if you put that kit away and you don't get it out for several years, it might make a mark where the sticky's been on your fabric. But if it's on the reverse,
doesn't matter.
It won't matter. But I'd suggest as soon as you get your kit, just take those adhesive labels off and stick them on the reverse of the fabric.
Now, Amanda says that she has a Jo Morton Fat 1/8 bundle. Would that be enough fabric for the top?
No.
Which fabrics do we need more of?
You need more of this one here. This is a 1/2 metre. The background's a 1/2 metre, and then your border is a metre and a quarter.
There's only one fabric
They're
that
all
you would either have to do.
They're all fat quarters for the round, so I don't think a fat 1/8 would be enough. You get a small version.
But we've put fat.
No, they're long quarters.
Oh, they're long quarters. Ah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
you'd get a different version, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd make
just
a small
have every
version.
square would just be different.
Yeah.
Every block could be different.
Yeah, same block pattern, but you get more of a varied shape.
Australian April says, wow, that looks so different. Took me a few minutes to realise it was the same block.
This is what happens, isn't
Yeah.
it? You know, you can make a quilt in the same pattern, but different colourways will give you a different look.
Yeah, because you can really see the sort of the pointy bits are
Yeah.
really technical. The pointy bits on those blocks with the
Yes.
Jo Morton, whereas with the Tilda, it looks more like blunt edge squares, doesn't it?
Yes.
It looks, yeah.
You get a different idea, and sometimes, because
Wow.
we've used the grey here,
Yeah.
this block here stands out slightly more than the actual star. Where on this one, it'll disappear slightly. We'll make the other block and we'll see, because we'll put the 4 on. and you'll see that this block doesn't stand out as much as that block does on the
Love it.
on there.
Love it. This is what I love about quilting, is you get such different effects with different colourways.
This is true. This is very true.
If
Okay.
anyone tuning in now is going to think, that's a funny old quilt.
Yeah, it's very strange.
What?
It doesn't even go. I don't like
No,
those
I
colourways.
don't like that one at all. What, think they're good with colour? Pruff.
What are they talking about? Okay. For the tilde, Fussy cutting the middle square. It's a 4.5 inch square for the middle square. They're 12-inch blocks. They're a 9 patch, so every block will be 4-inch finished. Every unit will be 4-inch finished, cut at 4.5. So it's 4.5 inch square. You will get enough, because you're making 12 squares, 12 blocks, but only 6 in each colourway. You need 6 squares out of your piece. This is what I had left over from my piece. This is my long quarter. That's how much I've used to get my squares. So you've still got all of that left over.
You've got loads left.
And this is because we're fussy cutting. We've been generous and given you a long quarter, because I have made from template plastic a 4.5 inch square. I've marked the 1/4 inch around the edge of that square, and I've also put an X in the middle where the middle of the square is.
Perfect.
Shall we do a close-up of that?
Oh yes, hang on. Yep.
I've also written on it that it's a 4.5 inch square, because you shove it into your sewing box
And then you never know.
and you forget. I mean, you can measure it, can't you? But it's always handy to label it.
I just use one of the small creative grids and
Yeah.
then just mark it off with some quarters tape.
If you've got that, that's brilliant. So that's what I've used there. Template plastic,
Okay.
4.5 inch square. Mark the middle of that square, because with the hair tile fabric, I want the hair to be in the middle. So I place the cross on the middle of the hair. Shall I do a close up of that?
Let's
as well?
do it. Let's do it.
If you can see. Can you see that?
X marks us. Oh, it looks
Can
like
you
a
see?
target.
Yes, it's a bit sad, isn't it? But just making sure that I've then got that in the middle. And obviously with template plastic, you can't use your rotary cutter. Well, you can, because you can place your ruler over the top and cut it.
Jane, have you seen the itty bitty ones?
You've got, haven't you, this one here?
Oh, well, that's the perfect 5, which is
Yes,
always
which
awesome.
would work.
But also, I took them to Hochanda with me yesterday. I've got the itty bitty, the itsy bitsy ones, which have got the every single 8th mark.
Yeah, they're brilliant, those rulers. Yeah, so if you can get one of those, or if you've got one of those, they're brilliant.
On the website.
Fabulous. What I have done in the past, let me just get that to the black, is I've drawn around my template, and then you can either cut it with scissors, or again you can place your ruler over the line and cut it with your rotary cutter. Sometimes when you're fussy cutting, using your scissors is better, because you've got the manoeuvrability to get in there and cut it. And also, if you draw around it, you can take it off and just look at it and think, yeah, that looks even. Yeah, that's okay. And if it isn't, then you can reposition it. So then you would cut round, and you would do the required number of squares that way. And that's just a little bit about fussy cutting.
What have we called this quilt in the end? What do we call it?
Good journey.
Is that what's
It's
written on the
no,
front
it's
of it?
written Bon Voyage. Because we went Bon Voyage, and then because of the fabric, and then we decided we would change the...
Okay, so
because
if that has confused people, if you look on the website for Bon Voyage. Bon Voyage.
Okay. So I am going to now demonstrate with the Shelbyville fabric, I am going to demonstrate this block.
Oh, it's called the Happy Voyager. Apparently, is what Emma's
Cool.
called it.
Brilliant. It works.
Yeah.
It works.
It's just so that people know what to look for it
Yes.
under. So we'll have to change the front cover of the pattern now. Yep, we can do that.
Josh will work his magic, won't you, Josh? Yes. He's used to me going, Josh, can you just, I've just read this and it doesn't say what I want it to say. Can you just change that word to this?
Every business should have a Josh.
Yes, absolutely invaluable. Right, so we've got the middle square, which is this fabric here. As I say, we've put labels on each of the fabrics so you'll know which one I'm talking about and it'll correspond with the pattern. That's the middle square, which is 4.5. We're going to do these corner units now. This one here with the square, 2 triangles and another half square. So from your cream and red or your teal and red, whichever version you're doing, you're going to cut 2.5-inch squares. Again, all of it's in your instructions. And from your background fabric, you're going to cut 2 7/8-inch squares. And you're going to cut these squares, the background fabric, in half across the diagonal to create half square triangles, like so. You are then going to sew, with your square facing you, you're going to sew the triangle to the top of that square along the short edge so that the triangle sits on top across the diagonal like that, and we're going to sew across there with the 1/4 inch. We're on 1/4 inch, no we're not. If I want to take the walking foot off now,
It was taken off earlier because
you did it.
I couldn't put it back on from behind. It's something you've got to do from the front of the machine because my hand kept knocking it up.
That's fair enough.
If you see what I mean.
I do. I do.
There's only so much I can do upside down, back to front.
I know.
And the wrong way round. I'm not that skilled, Jane.
You are Wonder Woman, but I think that's just taking it a little bit too far.
Now, Jacqueline says, morning, Natasha and Jane. Just ordered the Tilda quilt kit. Can't wait. Thank you, ladies, for bringing this to us. It's all Jane. It's all Jane. I just buy stuff and Jane makes it look amazing.
I get the best bit.
I quite like buying stuff, to be
Yes,
fair.
it is rather good
It's
fun.
the perfect job for me. And my husband's happy because at least I sell it on. It's like, thank God.
I'm pressing that towards the seam, towards this square. So when I press towards something...
So the dark side.
Yeah, I'm having the fabric that I want the seam to go under on the top. Okay. So you'll end up with 2 pieces like that. Well, you'll end up with 4 actually. You'll have 2 with that colourway and 2 with that colourway. You're then going to place the other triangle, half square triangle, on the side of that square, because what you're trying to do is you're going to make a bigger triangle.
Okay.
So we're going to place that into the corner, lining that corner up with that, and lining that one up with that one.
And if we have just done the block of the month with you,
Yes.
is this...
Yes, some of you may notice that it's that block.
Oh, hang on. I just changed the camera angle.
Sorry.
Whoop. There we go.
Let me stand the other side.
Ah!
It's this block. The more astute of you.
Ah!
Because I made this block and I made it with all 4 corners the same colour.
Yeah.
And because my mind works like this and I'm always, what if? I'm like, what happens if you change 2 of these to a different colour? And that's when you get this checkerboard effect, 4-patch effect there.
So for all of you who have done the block of the month, you've already done this in a form. So don't look at that quilt and think, oh gosh, it's lovely, I can't do it. Think of it, gosh, it's lovely, I can do it.
Well, this is the beauty, isn't it? Because we've built our skill level up with this block of the month.
Yep.
We've maybe pushed our boundaries slightly, got a little bit more confident, and you will start to see blocks or units that you've made previously making up a quilt, and you'll be like, you'll start to look at quilts and deconstruct them and think, oh, that's just half square triangles, or that's flying geese and half square triangles. You've now got your basic skills to go on, you know, and do more or less all of the traditional quilt blocks.
Yeah.
Because you've got, it's a bit like music, they're made up of several notes, you know.
There's only so many.
There's only 7 notes, isn't there?
Yeah.
And music is made, I mean, I know we've got sharps and flats and all of that, but everything is made up of 7 notes. So you will have...
Oh, hang on, no, an octave, surely it's 8.
Is it?
Because oct is always 8,
Yeah,
isn't it?
maybe it is. There's not that many. It's not as many as you think when you think
I don't
about
know.
music.
I'll go and have
how
a count up
the
on the
lovely
old piano in a
different
minute.
sounds. Patchwork is made up of squares and triangles.
Perfect. Perfect.
So you will have 2 red and 2 beige or brown, or 2 red and 2 teal triangles like this for your block, for one block. You will then take the colourway which we've used for this cut triangle here, and we've used the same colour in all of the blocks. So whether it's the brown one or the red one, it's going to be the same. So if you wanted to, you could make all 12 of these.
Well, in one go.
48 you'd make all together.
Yeah.
You could make them all together because you're going to use them in all of the blocks. So you've got a 4 7/8 inch square of that colour, which will be the bird vine for this one. It'll be that colourway for the tilde one, and it's that colour for this one.
Yeah, now you see, if you give yourself a quick blast of the sound of music, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, say
8.
yeah, which
Yes.
would sit nicely with the old oct.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Shows I don't know anything about music.
It took me a minute, and I've got piano sat out in the hall. It's like,
Quite quick.
well, because 7's quite a special number too.
Yes, it is, isn't
7's
it?
a really special number, and so I sort of wanted it to be 7, but it's not, it's 8.
No, it's 8. What I was trying to say was that the combinations of those 8 notes make the vast amount of music we listen
absolutely.
to.
Absolutely.
Doesn't it? You know,
Yeah.
there's very few things that sound the same. And the same with patchwork. Right, so you're going to cut those squares in half. You'll have 2 for your block, but again, as I say, you could do all of them in one go. You're going to place that triangle across right sides together with the triangle that you've already made with those 3 units. Flip it over so that you can see. Can we go close up on this?
Oh,
Natasha?
let's.
You're going to sew on this side because you've got X marks a spot, and you want your seam line to go this side of that cross there. I don't know if we can see it because the stitching's quite pale. So we can do that.
Oh yeah, that's backfired on me, isn't it? I put in white so it showed up on the blue binding.
Never mind. This is what you'd be doing. Is that sewing?
Has it undone?
It's come undone. It's come undone.
It does keep doing that. Yeah.
I got to rethread it.
No. Just
give it
take it down through that back little piece there, and then through to the 7 little bit on the side there. Can you see the little? Yeah,
This
through
bit
that
here?
bit there, and then you have to drop the foot
Drop
to
the
then
foot, and then bring
to then just push that whole thing down. And can you see on the side? There's a lever on the side, up on the top. There, up.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
Will it do it? Because even does it when you've got it's on the quarter.
But it
she
wants
said.
you to have the foot down.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah. Oh, hang on, the tilde's sold out. Will we be getting more? Yes, we just need to have a count up as to how many we have.
I think you've got more of the tilde fabric than you have of the Shelbyville fabric, so I think you'll be able to make more kits.
How many did we load of the Shelbyville?
10.
In the end? 10 of the Shelbyville.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's because of the border fabric. We've got fabric in different colourways that we can use for border if you wanted more kits, is all I'm saying. Because the fabric I've used, we'll talk about that in a moment, is we were just limited on stock of that. Right, there we go. You may want to pin this. Just be careful because you are working with a biased edge, so try not to stretch it, just let the machine feed it through.
Is this where we best press the whatever out
Yeah,
of it?
I've best pressed my fabric anyway, so it's nice and firm, but you're still working with a bias, so just take care.
And we're chain piecing as we go.
Yeah, just saves time, doesn't it? Chain piecing, it's
Oh, the concentration. It's getting it right, isn't it?
yeah. You just want to, you know, just take your time, make sure it's all lined up. And then press the seam under the large triangle, just so that it doesn't show up on the cream. There we go. And those are your corner units.
Nice. It's coming together, isn't it?
It comes together quite quickly. It's not too over-facing. Okay, so your next part is those middle units here which make the star shape. We're going to do with the red check, and you'll have cream check for the other blockway and a background square.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put those right sides together. We're going to mark the diagonal line. I'm just going to use this. I'm not going to use it as it should be used. I'm just using it as a line. Naughty.
Well, the middle line.
Yeah.
Well, it's yes.
Will
That's
the,
what the,
will
that's
the pen
what,
go through it?
Yeah, that's what the pen the middle line is for.
Right.
The gap in the
let's
middle. It's exactly
line
what
it
it's
up.
for. You're using
There
it
we go.
exactly for what it's for.
There we go. And we can mark the line on that.
And also because it grips, you know how you always go from the middle out?
Yeah.
Because it grips it with its non-slip grip, doesn't matter.
No, that's right. It's not going to move, is it?
Yeah,
And the fabric
which
will
is
stay.
what's so joyful about it.
So we're going to sew down the middle. Change that over. We're sewing down the middle of this. No, we're not. I'm lying. Oh! This is
Where
what
would
happens
you
when
like
you make
to sew?
3 quilts in one go.
Oh, no.
No. 1/4 inch either side of that line. There we go. We'll get it right in the end. I think actually I've done this. This is when you should check your notes.
Yep.
Because Yes. I was going to do it a quick way, but I've just realised you can't do it that way, so I'm going to unpick this line of stitching. Got the unpicker, and go back to the drawing board because...
Have you done it another way?
Yeah. If I did it this way, we'd end up with the quarter square triangles in the corners facing in opposite directions.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
Which we don't want to do.
No.
Because we want them to go round all in the same way.
I mean, you'd just get a different look.
Yeah, you would. You get a different block, which is not the end of the world. But it's not what we want for this quilt.
It's not the one we did.
So we'll just redo this.
Oh, do you know what? Josh has already changed that front cover for us to the Happy Voyager quilt.
Oh, he's such a star.
Yeah.
He doesn't hang around either, does he?
No, he doesn't mess around. And you know what? My gardener will also be really pleased that the wall he's managed to uncover has been featured.
Featured in the pattern.
He, bless him, he always likes to ask me. So basically, the people that had the house before us,
Yes.
were avid gardeners and really knew their stuff.
Yeah.
And then the house stood empty for 3 years, and the garden went to rack and ruin.
Oh, what a shame.
So John, our gardener, is unearthing and kind of working out their planting scheme.
Yes.
And everything else. And there's a gorgeous wall in the garden. Lovely.
How lovely.
And he's unearthed it from all the weeds and everything else. But he keeps saying to me, so would you like me to, and I just look at him and go,
Yeah.
John, it's like having a dog and barking myself. I don't understand lots of words. You've just said lots of words at me that have some sort of horticultural reference.
You don't understand them.
You have the knowledge. I don't. You crack on.
We are going to cut these two squares into quarter square triangles. So we
Okay.
are going to cut from corner to corner across both diagonals. And this is where your rotating cutting that comes into its own, because you don't really want to move the fabric.
I am going to get stock of those for anyone that wants them.
So
Let's see if I can do it now.
one diagonal. Now, if you haven't got a rotating cutting mat, you can position yourself sideways and go across there. But if you have a rotating cutting mat, you just turn it round. It doesn't move your fabric, and so therefore you can cut through the other diagonal without moving anything, which is just a whiz. So you're going to end up with 4 triangles of each of those colours. There we go. We are now going to sew those 2 triangles together, and we want to have them so that looking at it the way you want the pattern fabric at the top and the cream fabric on the left hand side. So you're sewing down the quarter mark, the short side of the triangle on each of those. Now you might have looked at that and thought, well, why couldn't you have done it the way that you wanted to? But if you do it that way that I've just shown you, you will end up with 2 of the triangles on the left hand side, which is not what you want.
Right.
And so if you try and make it the way we've made it, you'll end up with them going not the way you want them to go round. So there is a method in my madness.
I'm always
Even
happy
though
for methods
some
of
people
madness.
may have watched that and thought, what on earth? Because that looks just exactly what she was just doing before.
But you can still chain piece.
Chain piece. Just going to press those Open.
Oh, do you know what else I meant to tell everyone is back in stock? You know the little tiny little cutters, the little pivoting cutters.
Oh yes.
They're back in stock.
Nice.
Just I meant to tell everyone. The little handy pocket rotating ones. Okay, so this is looking good.
This is coming together.
Yeah.
And then the main colour which you're using for your larger triangle, you will cut 2 of those squares, and again you will cut them in half along the diagonal. Going to next month's block of the month, did we do that survey about whether people wanted to do a subscription, or whether they were, because we were asking, weren't we, how it all, you know.
Yeah, so the decision was, we had a poll and SJ's given me the decision, and the decision is the first Wednesday of every month.
Cool.
And lots of you wanted it as a subscription, which we'll have to work out how to set up, and lots of you wanted, and so and also just to pay monthly.
Brilliant. That's good. That's good. Just so that we get an idea, isn't it, really, of what, you know,
well,
everybody
we're
wants.
only here because you guys are here, so we may as well do what you want.
That's it. Give the customer what they want, if you can. So you will have seen that I've cut those squares in half to make half square triangles, and I'm now going to sew them to that triangle that we just created. And again, I'm going to sew them on the side with the seam, just so that when I'm sewing it, I can make sure that the seam lies flat as I'm sewing down. And again, just take care, because you are working with biased edges.
Best press.
Yeah, best press your fabric to death before you start cutting it.
Excellent.
When I was talking about the next month's block of the month, somebody asked whether we would be able to do it in a different colourway rather than the blues.
Oh.
And I said, well, that'll be down to Natasha.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for that. Just knock that firmly into my court, why don't you?
Well, you might be having something gorgeous that we might be able to.
Okay, let me think about that. Could that person that asked for a different colourway let us know what sort of colours you would like, whether you want it in oranges or reds, or what it was that you had in mind, to see if we can do that? Because how many different blues are there in there, Jane? Just
we've got 15 fabrics.
Yeah.
So I think it's 14. This is what happens when you let Jane go mad with a pattern. It's like, let's go with all the shades possible of blue.
We've got some beautiful batiks. Maybe we don't have 14 different shades of those. I was thinking 5. Fine, 5. Yeah. No. Oh, but it could be done in every shade of yellow, orange and red, and be like a sunrise. That would look amazing.
Yes. We could really play with it.
I hope that whoever it was that asked had wanted it in a red, orange sunrise burst, because, that's what's happening.
It will look lovely. There we go.
Are you still enjoying your cutting mat? Your pressing mat, rather.
Yes, I am. Let me just look at this.
whilst we're talking cutting mats, which I didn't mean to, but they are on my mind, they are on their way from America. Now, they're coming by boat and were meant to have been in this week. But guess what? The fun stuff, there's been a week delay because they've been sat at the port with the wrong paperwork.
Oh, don't you just love it?
I love a bit of wrong paperwork. And when asked, well, what's wrong with the paperwork? Basically, you have to put the weight on. So they've put the weight on, but they didn't add the whole total together. And obviously nobody could actually do that. So they've been sat there for a week while people try to find out what's wrong with the paperwork. You know, and you just think, come on.
Yes.
Because they're not used to using shipping. They're used to flying it.
Yeah.
So they're not used to doing the paperwork.
Yeah, and I think
So everything
at
changes.
the moment, you know, everybody's on a lower workforce as well. There's less people around doing the jobs, and everything is just taking a little bit longer everywhere.
So, apologies. I still have a list of everybody, bless you, that has bought and ordered and done whatever for the cutting mats. So please don't think that you've been forgotten. It's just that, you know, ugh.
I'm just sewing these together in rows
Okay.
because we sew the 3 rows together, and then we sew it together in rows of 3, and then we sew the 3 rows together. Now, some of you may have watched me manoeuvring the units around, and that's just because I wanted the stripes to all go the same way. And because we've cut them the way we have, we can make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
You may want them to go the other way. It's entirely up to you. And again, have a play. Do it and play with it and see what you think. And, you know, it's your quilt. Do what you like, and you can add something different to your quilt.
Nikki, I've just loaded more of the quilt. Basically, we're cutting it as we go. The Joe Morton is all cut out, so we know exactly as we have. Inga is busy cutting it as we speak. So, we get updates as to how many she's managed to do out of the fabric that we have. It's all good.
I think it's the border, isn't it, that sort of makes us decide how many kits we can have, because obviously there's quite a bit of fabric for the border.
Yeah.
You will have noticed that on the Tilda one, I have done it so that the fabric goes all in the same direction.
Yes, you have.
And you can do that with there's enough fabric to do that. You just need to cut it across the width of the fabric, and you cut the top and the bottom piece first because you'll get that out of one, and then I've done a join somewhere on the side pieces. Oh, there's a seam in it there somewhere.
I love you can't even see it.
No, it's fabric. I've matched the fabric.
Somewhere in there. Jane, I would just like to say that Vicky says there are 7 notes in an octave.
Oh, right.
But the do or the C is in twice.
Yes. Yes,
so
of course
you were technically you were
I
right.
was right.
And I don't know where that would stand on a pub quiz.
No,
it would be up for debate.
It could be
I
one
think.
of those that causes ructions
Uproar.
and pint glasses to be thrown across tables and all sorts, isn't it? It's like, not having it.
Helen treated herself to the Joe Morton kit. Helen's husband sent me the most lovely email, and it made me laugh and laugh and laugh.
Oh.
Thank you for that. I love when the husbands get involved. Yeah. Firstly, I get the fear of, oh no.
Oh no, yeah.
No.
You can't blame me, it's not my fault.
Yeah. But actually, no. Mr. Law is a fine man. He's the one that on Thursdays, instead of going out and clapping, went out and played his bagpipes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he can actually play the bagpipes. It wasn't just a matter of how much noise could he make.
Yeah.
Like, he actually can. Because Helen posted videos of him doing it, and he's actually good.
Brilliant. That's absolutely lovely. And there have been so many people that have done so many lovely things, isn't there?
Yeah.
To celebrate
Nikki wants
our
to know,
NHS.
which creative grid would you recommend using with this quilt?
I use my 12.5 by 6.5 inch creative grid the most because I feel it's got everything I need on it.
Yeah.
But your square rulers are just as good.
And there's also, if
And
I
your
don't know if it-
stripology is handy for cutting your, because there's 2.5 inch squares in there, and you know, if you've got the whole collection of creative grids, you can use every ruler they've got.
You know, we were saying this. I did a creative grid show on Ho Chanda yesterday, and the presenter that was with me is just starting to quilt and sew, and she's doing. I mean, gosh, she's doing amazingly. But she's starting down the creative grids route, and she's just starting to realise that it doesn't matter how many of them she has, she will end up using them all for different things. So there's never a ruler wasted when you go, oh, but I've got the extra large stripology, I might not use the middle size one. Well, yeah, you do.
You do.
You do, just for different things. Nikki, the long thin ruler, the really long thin ones, they're brand new in from America, and it was the 15 inch, I can't remember what it's called. What's the long thin one called, Joan, that you got there? Has it got a name on it?
Does it say? Does it say?
Because that was what you were using to mark
Yeah.
up your whatevers.
No, it doesn't. It's got a code, CGRSMN15, but doesn't have a name.
That is its name.
That's
Well, we're
its
just
name.
going to call it that. There you go. I hope that helps, Nikki. And yeah.
And so I've just sewn the 3 strips together, the 3 rows together, and that will give us our block. And the other block is made exactly the same way, but it's just a different colour for the main star bit. So it's a red and a cream beigey check, or with the tilde one, it's a blue. It's the blue where the red is and the red where the blue is, and it's all explained in the instructions. I've tried to be as clear as I can. I give you fabric letters rather than colours, just so that you can, you know, if you want to make the pattern again, you can just decide which fabrics you're going to use, and use those in different colorways. So that's the red one. You can see it's got a different middle as well. And then that's the brown one. And if we just pop those up against, you will see, you put your squares, you'll sew them together in rows of 3, and you sew them all in the same orientation, so the beige on the left and the red on the right, or vice versa, that doesn't really matter. But as long as you keep them all the same way, that will make that 4 patch
Oh wow! Look at
in
it.
the middle. That gives you your 4 patch. Ooh, it's alive. Oh,
Brilliant.
this is where, look what Jane's done. She's
What's
she's
Jane
put
done?
her corners in the wrong places. Check your corners before
What
you
happens
start
if you
sewing
spin
your
it?
rows together. No, because the 2 reds are there and the 2 beiges are there. Whatever. There's always a mistake. The middle looks right anyway.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You'll
Go
get
with that. The other is
effect.
just a design
Yeah,
choice.
and that. So you'll cut your border strip once you've got all those middle rows together. So you'll sew rows of 3 and you'll alternate. This is what you do as well. You alternate. So one row starts with the red and the other row starts with the brown, so that you alternate the colours. Let's just flip that round so that we get the...
Oh, Naomi wants to know what is the fabric choice for the border, the wide border on the Jo Morton.
I'm just about to show you.
Oh, you haven't missed it, Naomi. You're all right.
We're
Don't
getting
worry.
there, Naomi, don't worry. Jane's just
You're
being
just in time. Jane's pinning
cack-handed
stuff.
with her
What you doing?
pinning. I'll get there. Okay, so you'll do one row with your red, brown, red, and then the other row with brown, red, brown, or blue, red, blue in with the tilde. You've then got you'll get all of those together, so you'll sew them in rows of 3, and then you'll sew 2 rows of 3 together, and then you'll sew another 2 rows of 3 together, and then you'll sew those 2 lots of rows together to make 4 rows. And then you'll place, I think it's 1.5 inches, yes it is, across the top. You'll measure that width of that quilt, and you'll put that border on across the top and then down the sides, so you get that effect. Let's just do it.
Emma's just said, could Jane just make up the whole quilt in the Joe Morton? She says so that she has a photo for the website, but I think what she actually means is so that she can have it. Yeah,
yeah, I know.
That's it.
I'm wise to this. And so then you'll cut 6.5 inches of your border, and this is the border fabric.
Oh,
Shall
do you want to do a little close-up so Naomi can see it?
And it's the cream with the red, but nice. I do know that Natasha has it in other colourways, so she might be able to make up the kit in other colourway borders if she's so inclined.
Would that mean that we could make more kits?
Yes.
Oh. You know that stash more than I do, because that's actually up in the warehouse.
Yes.
And I haven't gone near it
I've
because
been
I
in
didn't
the warehouse
dare touch it.
and looked at it.
Whereas
so there
you've
we
had a
go.
good
That's what
rummage
it
around.
would. That gives you an idea of how it would look, and you would then bind it. We've taken this lovely red stripey to bind it with as well, so it sort of joins it all together.
Completely different look, isn't it?
It's lovely, and it's
want
warm
both.
and cosy.
Yeah.
I think the tilde is spring, summer. This is your autumn, winter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know exactly what you mean.
So you can see what I was saying about this configuration here forms almost as another unit that you look at.
Oh gosh, it does. It really does.
Your eye dances through it, and that was just me looking at this block and going, what happens if you change these 2 colours? And that's all it is. And that's what patchwork's about. You look at something and you think, what would happen if? And that's what happens. So there we go. That's that one done.
You can have a couple of weeks break then before we start on the next one. Shall we recap the next one? Well done, Jane.
How far we've got, with next time's block of the month, which we're going to do on the first Wednesday.
First Wednesday then of every month, if that works for you.
First Wednesday of every month.
Hang on one cotton picking second. How many blocks have we done, you and me, here?
6.
So today is our 6th month anniversary of Natasha Makes, because you were the very first show.
I did January, didn't I? January the 10th was the first one. So we're on a 7th month because we've done joining together and binding.
So we've been going for 6 months and we're now into our 7th month.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Gosh,
It's
where has that
fantastic.
time gone?
Yeah.
Because you were our very first show.
Since then.
Sorry?
And look what we've been through since then.
I know.
January and February we were giving each other a hug and a kiss, and then March came and we were like, let's just keep a little bit away from each other. And then
since then I've been
April came and it's like, get away from me, stand over there. So we've got block 1, 2, 3 done so far. I have chosen these fabrics. We've sourced these fabrics from a different company. I've gone out on a limb here and said to Natasha, can I do this? And she said, yeah, go for it. So, but as we speak at the moment, I don't physically have these fabrics. They're on their way. So it might come to it that you might have to wait a little bit to get your actual kits in August. I'm fingers crossed and everything, they'll be there, but
it's the same old at the moment.
It's a bit like your cutting mats, really.
They are on their way. They're coming from America via Canada, which wouldn't necessarily have been the route.
No.
That necessarily springs to mind as the quickest, but that's the only way we can get them. So, that's how they're coming.
Yeah.
At some point.
But I'm excited about this. This is going to be lovely. And again,
Jen, you should,
We're-
because it's stunning.
We're working on what we've already learnt. So we're going to re-look at some processes and we're going to learn a few more. We're going to talk a bit more about matching seams, making sure everything fits together. Yeah, should be good fun. It's a 7-block quilt. There's there's 6 in the middle bit and then there's another block in the corners.
Ooh.
So yeah.
I'm actually clapping with excitement.
It's good.
Like my 2-year-old.
So there we go. That's today done.
Jane, thank you.
You're very welcome.
When Sewing Quarter shut, it was really important to us that we continued the block of the month for you, that we found a way.
Yes.
And I remember having a conversation with you in the kitchen at Sewing Quarter, going, well, we just have to make it happen somehow.
Yes.
And look what's happened.
I know. Natasha's built a whole new company because of the block of the month.
Look what you made me do.
Yes, I'm terrible, aren't I? I'm such an influencer.
Do you realise how little sleep I get now?
Oh, I know. We were just talking to you, wasn't it, about it this morning? Yeah.
It's fine. Then
We
sleep
don't
is-
need sleep. What's that?
Sleep's for the weak.
Yeah. Who needs sleep? So,
Yeah, look at all those beautiful fabrics. They can be
Gorgeous.
winging their way to you, and poor Inga is busy cutting them all up. So
Yeah.
we'll find out
do
if
we
there
want
are
to
any
show
more
the
to
other,
add.
the Shelby one as kit as well? Do we want to show that?
Oh yeah.
Just so that they can see them all together.
I think I left it in the light box. Hang on. I'm gonna have to crawl under the camera. Oh, hi, Arthur. It's cold, Arthur. I'll turn your oven on, your fire on in a minute. He's got his own little fire in the corner of the studio.
The studio dog, he's so well behaved, you don't even know he's there.
He was, when we were at Sewing Quarter, he was the only dog that was allowed in by the director who owned all the camera equipment.
Yeah.
So I never let animals in. Social distancing.
There we go. So you can see now, we've got the border fabric.
You want a close up now, don't you?
Yeah,
Hang on.
I can work on that.
Give me a second. I'm going to add floor manager to my list.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
another
managed
job
to
title.
switch itself off in the moment that I dared to go across there, of
Yeah,
course.
this
There we
is
go.
what happens. So
There we
you've got your border fabric there,
Nice.
with lovely vines and red flowers in. We've got the binding and mini border fabric there, that lovely red with the cream. And then we've got your cream background, which is straightforward. This is the one that we've used for the half square triangles that forms round the edge of the 4 patch.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the one that I had to go and take lots of photos of? To
Yes,
see
because
to
I'd
pick
sent
which one?
I'd chosen a brown fabric originally, thinking it would encase, show off the 4 patch. But then when I put it in against the brown of the star, of course, it just disappeared. So there's a frantic phone call to Natasha saying, "Have you got this colour for this one?" Those are your 2 spotty ones that go the little squares in the middle that make the 4 patch. And then we've got the checks, the 2 checks, which are your quarter square triangles, the red and the cream.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Jo Morton really knows how to put a kit together, doesn't she?
She does. She's
You know,
got some
she's-
beautiful
yeah.
designs. And then we've got the stripy flower, which forms the main part of the triangles, which forms the sort of star in the middle. Lovely, so pretty. And then these are the 2 that I chose for the centre squares. So we've got that one with the little flowers on. There's sort of like a bluey black colour and the brown and the red. And then this cream with the brown on,
Nice.
just to make the centres slightly different. So there you go.
Oh, Jane, fantastic. Thank you so, so much. So, hang on, let me have a look on in the diary. Are we going to start this August then? Let's do that,
well,
shall we?
let's go for it.
Let me just check the date. First Wednesday. I will just have to double check. I might be doing a an ODS over it. Oh no, or is that a Thursday? No, I'm working over at Hochanda on that
we might
Wednesday.
change it then.
So, oh no, hang on. First, no, what am I saying? That's September. That's September.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first Wednesday is the 5th. Wednesday the 5th. I can do that. We might have to make it a different Wednesday in September.
It's fine. I'm flexible. I can do whatever.
Just because I took out all the 10ths.
Yes.
But obviously that's already in the diary for September. But going forward, I will know after that.
Yeah. We can do that, can't we?
And it's
we
quite
can have
a special
little...
one-day special, so I can't...
No. Yeah, we'll change it. We can change it. This is the thing, isn't it? We can be flexible, which is lovely. So, yeah.
Excellent.
See you on August the 5th then.
August the 5th.
It'll be here before we know it.
Won't it?
Yes.
Just won't it? That just is how it goes. Lots of exciting things coming up in the next couple of weeks. You know.
Yes.
You know one of the things.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tease you with it. So, guys, thank you so much. Jane, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Always, always, always. And
Thank you.
I will be back, as ever, 10 o'clock on Monday. Don't know what I'm doing yet.
Be excited now.
It will be a
surprise
magical
for everybody.
mystery tour for me too. I have an
Lovely.
inkling. But I better get on and buy some fabrics for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you, everybody.
And
Bit of a long one today, but we've got through it.
It's all good. It's all good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we start the next block, the next quilt, new chapter.
Yeah.
August.
Lovely.
Perfect. Wave goodbye, Jane.
Bye-bye.
Bye.